All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. I am still as excited as I was the day I opened the box for this thing. Got back from Atlanta, finally got a little time with the machine. I've been able to finish getting it set up, getting it running, and it's awesome. That's all I can say about it. Now, this is the only larger CNC I've ever owned, but I can tell you now, I do not see any problems with me having limitations with this machine, and I am very happy with the purchase so far. So, a lot of people are asking me what made me decide to get Shapeoko. What was the things that I considered? What were the selling points, advantages, disadvantages, pros, cons? So I figured while I was taking a little bit of a break from playing with my new toy, I would take a minute to answer some of those questions and maybe try to put out a video so that if you're in the situation that I'm in, maybe this will help you decide which way you want to go. Now, keep in mind, I bought this, okay? This was my money. I made the decision and I bought it. So this isn't one of those videos where they send me a machine. So if you're concerned that maybe my opinion is skewed, then that's definitely not the reason. So stick around and I'm gonna go over what all went into me making the decision to go with the Shapeoko. All right, guys, so just to give you a quick cliff notes for those of you that may not know, I got my first CNC probably not quite a year ago. It was a SainSmart Genmitsu 4040 Pro. Now, I took that one as simply as a review because I had been wanting to get into CNCs, but I wanted to make sure it wasn't something that was going to be a waste of my money. And so I was like, okay, I'll take it. I'll test the machine. So I got the machine, started doing some researching and studying on how to operate those machines, understanding the basic fundamentals, which software is best, and all that. So I ended up going with easel in the beginning with the 4040 because easel was very simple. It didn't take knowing speeds and feeds. You didn't have to have a whole lot of knowledge of the different bits. They had ready-made files that you could use. Easel is kind of like the XCS of CNCs. It's got a lot of built-in settings. It's got a lot of just follow the steps to get your project done. And so I learned basically how to use that for a while until I got a little comfortable. Then I went to the 3030 for a little while, used it, got a little more comfortable. It was a little more rigid machine, although smaller work area. And then finally, I decided to get into V-Carve. And I played with V-Carve with the 3030 for a little while and used V-Carve Desktop, which I'm still currently using. And once I got that to where I felt comfortable with it, then next thing you know, Genmitsu sends me out the 6050, which I was already on the fence about getting a CNC. I'd been talking with Steve about it, been talking to some of my local friends. And when I got the 6050, it was very close to what I had expected a real, like, upper end hobby CNC to be. And so I was pretty happy with it. But the only limitations I had with that machine was the size of the work area. So then I decided, yes, after seeing what I can do with the 6050, I made a lot of this stuff, the honeycombs I made with the 6050, all of my little brackets that I use for my dust collection, made it with a 6050, did several cool projects with the 6050, and what was taking me hours, like 4 or 5 hours on the 4040 Pro in the beginning, I got it now to where I could do it in 45 minutes with the 6050. So I kind of saw where the bigger and the stronger the machine is, the faster your feeds and speeds, which means projects come off of the machine quicker. And so the smaller machines were kind of limiting me until I got the 6050. Now I will say the 6050, you can use it to do projects as long as the work area is enough to do what you want to do with. But after I got to being able to do projects faster and I found that there was a market for that kind of stuff and I was selling a few things, I decided I needed a larger work area. So I wanted a 4 foot by 4 foot. So now we get into the nuts and bolts of my investigation into the different types of CNCs that are out there, the pros and the cons from my perspective, and yours may be different. You may have a total another set of rules. But the things that I was looking for in a CNC, and we'll just kind of go through those so you'll know what things I was considering, was one, of course, cost, because I didn't have $10,000 to be dropping on a CNC. It's still kind of an unknown market for me. I feel like I'm going to be able to make my money back with it by selling products and stuff, but I'm not 100% sure. So $10,000 was a little bit too much of a gamble for me to take. All right. Cost, that was like right at the top. The second thing was I wanted a 4 foot by 4 foot work area. I wanted a machine that I could go buy a piece of plywood, cut it in half, and put it on there. Or if I don't want to cut it in half, release my casters, roll the machine away from the wall, and just do the whole 4x8 sheet without cutting it in half. But either way, I wanted a complete 48-inch work area. So right out of the gate, during those considerations, that kind of knocked the X-Carve completely off of my list because one, the price was way more than I wanted to spend. The next machine, the Onefinity machines, which my buddy Steve has Onefinity. I'm not by no means knocking the machines. They're great machines. People love them. And so I was looking at the Onefinities. Well, to get into the 48 by 48 work area, you were looking at going with one of the higher end machines, such as the new one with the Masso controller and all that. What do they call it? The Elite Foreman. I think that's the name of it. Don't quote me on that. But so I started looking at those machines and then I started comparing prices. Well, the Shapeoko, I have friends here locally that had Shapeoko Pros. There's a lot of YouTubers such as Samcraft, 731 Woodworks, a few other smaller channels that I watched that had the machine and seemed to be pretty happy with it. And so I started watching some of those videos and decided that the Shapeoko was definitely a contender for what I was going to do. Because after talking to people like Sam, my local friends, they had really good luck with the previous model, which was the Shapeoko Pro. The only difference with that machine is the work area is not 48 by 48. So that meant if I was going to get a Shapeoko, this was the guy I was going to have to go with. So the more research I did, guys, it all came down to, at the end of the day, when I got ready to buy the machine, the companies were kind of tied. At this point, I'd eliminated every other machine that I could find. I had reached out to CNC Labs about their machine. The price was really good on the machine, but they were still using the belts and the roller wheels. I know they have one in development that doesn't use those, that actually has ball screws and all that, but there was no estimated time of arrival for the machine when I was doing my research. And so that pretty much knocked them off the table as well. Since then, I've found out there's some other brands that I did not compare because I wanted to stick with one of those 4 brands because they seem to be the most popular. And so when I got to looking at this guy, I noticed that in my research, the only real information out there for the machine, other than those few channels that I've already mentioned, were the ones that are on Carbide's website. But I felt like there needed to be a little more information out there for the average Joe, the user that's looking at getting into it, from a real world experience, somebody that's going to use it fairly frequently. So me and Steve talked about it, and on the Sunday Night Lives, guys, y'all know we answer questions when we can, and considering that I'm going to be using the machine for content as well, I felt like me and Steve having the same machine could be a bit counterproductive for you guys that want different machines. So that was kind of a determining factor too, was the fact that if I had a different machine than Steve, I could provide content on the Shapeoko, Steve could provide content on the Onefinity, and that would cover a wider area, a wider gap of the people in the groups. So that was a big consideration. And the icing on the cake, guys, was the fact that I'm a big Knight Rider fan. I'm a big, like, back in the day, I liked chromed out motorcycles, riding motorcycles. And look at it. It is a masterpiece. It is very, very sturdy. The black and just metal exposed, the black and silver, it just looks good, okay? So I hit the button. I made the order. I ordered everything that I could get with the machine, the upgraded dust boot, the spindle, you know, got it all. Bit setter, bit zero, the whole 9 yards. And I'm very happy with it. Now, to make it even better, I wound up getting with my buddy Cody over at Cadence Manufacturing. Got myself a pretty much the majority of the line of the Genie bits. And guys, these things shred, okay? Keep in mind, this is my only, I'm not going to say professional, but this is the first pro model CNC that I've had, something that you can actually do production with. But the bits and the machine together, paired up, using the settings that Cody puts on the tubes for the bits, this thing is smooth, it shreds. I've got some footage, and I'll kind of drop some of that right here for you to look at. So at the end of the day, guys, like I said, my situation's a little different than yours. Onefinity makes a good machine. I know that for a fact because I trust Steve's judgment. Steve says all the time that he likes his. I got to actually look at some of them and kind of put hands on them in Georgia. They are rugged, they're sturdy. But the thing that really, really got me was this thing comes with its own bed. So that's a little bit of a savings. I didn't have to run and buy any MDF. Although my table, as sturdy as I built my table, I could have set a Onefinity on here because at the time I built the table, guys, I really wasn't sure which machine I was going to get. So the table is built sturdy enough that I could have went with the Onefinity and just put me some MDF down and would have been fine that way. But by the time you figure the spindle, because I got the spindle and didn't have to use a router, the bed and all of those extra added things that I was going to have to get with the Onefinity, the price is actually a little cheaper for the Shapeoko once you start adding those things. If you priced a Onefinity with a 1200 watt spindle, if you priced the Onefinity with the materials to make the bed, if you start adding that stuff to that, then actually the Shapeoko technically is a little cheaper in the long run as well. So like I said, those are the considerations that I had made for it. There's a couple of things that I have found, and I don't want to just be singing this thing's praises. So there's a couple of things that I have found that are taking me some getting used to and some tweaks that I'm having to make. The one complaint that I have so far, and there may be a way to fix this, is the bit setter. Although in concept it seems like a good idea, I got the bit 0 and I've been running the bit 0. That's what I'm used to because with the 60-50, the 40-40, the 30-30, I used a bit 0. Now this one does do X, Y, and Z, which is really cool. When you hit probe, it does all 3 axes. I do like that, but I wasn't a fan of the bit setter. And one reason being, I upgraded to the dust collection that is stationary with surface of the material. And if you forget to raise that thing up when that bit setter starts to do work, it will slam into that bit setter and cause a problem. So I have opted to disconnect the bit setter, take it off, and I've got it in a box. If I ever get to where I feel comfortable or I decide I want to use it, or maybe it's a job that I want to swap my dust collection out, then I can put it back on there. All you got to do is go into the settings and check the little box and turn it back on. So far, I've been running the machine with carbide motion, which works great with the machine. It has plenty of functions. The settings are easy. Manipulating the files is easy. One of the other things that I did find out, if you go from one of those smaller machines to this one, is in Vectric, whatever your spindle speed is in Vectric, it has to be above the 8,000 RPMs, which is the minimum for this spindle, or the spindle does nothing. I thought that if the settings were too low for the spindle, it would just compensate and run it at its lowest setting, but apparently that is not the case. So when you're putting your speeds and feeds in, you definitely need to make sure that the speed that you're putting in, if you've been using something like something like the Sage Smarts, where it's only like 1,200, 1,800 RPMs or whatever the case may be, you definitely want to make sure that those settings or higher than the minimum. I had a little bit of a trouble in the beginning trying to bring files in from Vectric. Talked to the folks at Vectric when I was over in Georgia, and I thought that that was the problem, but I wasn't sure. When I got home, I did some testing, and sure enough, that was the problem that I was having. I've adjusted the speeds, especially since I put Cody's new bits in there. Most of those bits are running 12, 16,000 RPMs anyway, which is well above the 8,000 threshold, and so I have not had any problems with the files importing into carbide motion since then. But that's the gist of it, guys. It came down to money and the ability to create content with a machine that's not just going to be like beating a dead horse. Because if I'd have got a Onefinity right now, YouTube is flooded with guys doing videos on the Onefinity. And so by getting the Shapeoko, hopefully I'll have more of an audience than I would if I was trying to recreate videos that other guys do on the Onefinities. Because I do enjoy, I've enjoyed YouTube. And that is one thing that was really a surprise to me, is the first few videos that I made trying to teach folks how to do things and adjust this and adjust that. After a while, you kind of get to where you enjoy it. So this is where I'm at on my journey so far, guys. I've got everything working with Vectric. I took the opportunity last night to go ahead and level the waste boards. So I run me a bed leveling path on there. Then I trimmed out the machine, got it trimmed, reran it tonight, and got it really smooth, super slick. And I've been playing just cutting holes in this piece of plywood here with the Genie bits, confirming the speeds work good with my machine and everything. And so far, so good. So the next few days, hopefully, I'll have a chance to throw a couple of designs in there and make a couple of projects. Maybe not tonight, because I've done let it get a little bit late. I had a friend come over, wanted to see the machine, and his visit turned into quite a lengthy conversation about CNC stuff. And so this video is running a little bit behind. But for those of you that were asking and were curious as to why I chose Shapeoko, like I said, the overall price, economy, they have great support, they got online community, they got tools, all of those things are in place, the performance, and it looks cool. So those are the big things that I considered. I like the machine. Like I said, I'm not down in any of the others, but for what I wanted, this machine brought all that to the table, and I was able to order the spindle that I knew was going to work with the machine without me having to adjust, set up anything or whatever. There was going to be no issues with that, and that meant a lot to me as far as not having to be concerned with when it gets here, am I going to be able to set it up? Because setting up spindles is not something I've done a lot of. But anyway, guys, like I said, I appreciate all the messages and the comments and the questions, but I just want to answer that for you. For those of you that was asking, why in the heck did you choose Shapeoko? I hope this clears it up. And like I said, I hope to have some good content coming out. I've had a few guys message me saying that they've got this machine coming. I hope to maybe be able to learn the machine and get the hang of it quick enough to be able to provide some good content for those guys. The assembly is not bad, guys. So just follow the book that's in the box and you'll be fine. But until we can come up with a project video for the machine, guys, that's going to conclude it for today. So if you hadn't already, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more cool Shapeoko videos. And until next time, guys, be safe and have a good day.